Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Adam Tex Davis, screenwriter, Emmy-nominated producer, and podcaster. Please enjoy Adam Tex Davis. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Adam Tex Davis, screenwriter, Emmy-nominated producer, and podcaster. Welcome to the show.
Hello, nice to meet you. It's great talking to you, Mary.
I'm excited to have you here to chat creativity. And before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and just let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Adam Tex Davis. It's actually Adam Davis. I added the Tex because if you Google search Adam Davis, 5,000 people show up. There's baseball players, there's guys in prison, there's my cousin. And by adding a Tex, if you Google search Adam Tex Davis, I come up. So it was something I decided to do in college. And it's kind of been a calling card for me. And people, of course, are like, "Are you from Texas?" I'm like, "No, I grew up in Jersey." But it just was a vibe. It was a vibe.
Sure.
So yeah, as far as I've been mostly a writer. I've been a screenwriter. I wrote the movie Just Friends, starring Ryan Reynolds and Anna Farris and Amy Smart. But as a kid, I always loved writing because it was something you could do alone. I loved making movies with my friends. I loved doing, collaborative things. But when there was nobody around and it's a rainy day, you could always write. And I remember seeing Star Wars for the first time, and I literally just wrote the entire movie in my own words and filled up an entire notebook. And so I always loved writing. And then, I thought for a second, I thought I was going to be a novelist. I was going to be Stephen King, and I was going to write horror movies, then, or horror novels. And then it was like, well, horror novels are long. So maybe I'll do short stories. Then I got into like journalism, and I was like, oh, I'll report news. But then I had this nasty habit that if the story wasn't that great, I would make things up. So I realized I had enough journalistic integrity to know that I didn't have any journalistic integrity. So I stopped journalism. But then to me, screenwriting became bad journalism. Something happens, and then you tell the coolest version of that story. So even my movie Just Friends was about being in the friend zone for 2 years with a girl where I thought I had a shot eventually, and no, I was just the Just Friends guy. So I wrote about that thinking that other people would be able to relate to that, and they did, and the movie got made. And then from there I've done a lot of pivoting. I've done some TV. I did a show called Brain Games. I got an Emmy nomination for that. I did a show for Netflix for kids called Brainchild. Then when the pandemic hit, you couldn't shoot anything, so we grabbed microphones. We started a kids educational podcast called Who Smarted. And then that's just led to more podcasting. So versatility is the name of the game sometimes with creativity.
Absolutely. I mean, I love hearing the journey and where you started and how that turned into new ideas and different opportunities. And as you said, the versatility and flexibility of pivoting and how you get to where you are today. I love it. Thank you for giving us that little rundown. I'm so curious, when you think of creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
It's funny because a lot of people, I think they have this notion that creativity is this special thing that's only reserved for few people and that only a few people can tap into it. And to me, creativity, it's like, well, take the word, what is creativity? Creativity is like just creating something that wasn't there. My wife is creative because she knits. She takes yarn and she makes a sweater. That's creativity. Sometimes it's dinner. Sometimes it's me writing an angry poem about how bad the New York Jets are. Like, you can, as long as you're creating something new, you're being
Mhm.
creative. Now, do you want to get paid for it? Do you want that to be your job? Well, that's a different set. Then you have to figure out what you're good at, and if you're good at, good enough, can you compete with other creative types and beat
Mhm.
them out for getting jobs, rewriting things, or getting hired on a show, or whatever. But just general creativity, you can go for a walk and get an idea for a song, for a poem, for
Yeah.
anything. Anything can be, starting from scratch and just creating something, putting something new into the world. That's creativity to me.
Hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree. And seeing as how you brought in the kind of creative career aspect of it, I'm curious, as you entered a very creative journey in career and making money from it, how do you maintain like your own creative cup? Like, do you ever feel like because it's become a job, it's lost some of the creative spark, or how do you keep your creativity alive?
Well, I mean, there's in a way, doing it as a profession, there's two types. There's what you
Mhm.
write, or, in my case, say writing or coming up with an idea. There's stuff you do for you, and then there's
Mm.
stuff that you do for them.
Oh,
And,
okay.
if you get hired by a corporation to do a campaign of some sort or write a promo, they're going to give you all these guidelines. It's hard to be creative. So you do the best you can. You bring what they, there's a reason they came to you. So you
Mhm.
give them that, but you also are giving them what they want. So it's a little less creative. And you,
Mhm.
and you, you compartmentalize that. You put that aside, and that's a type of creativity. And then there's the stuff you do, the play, the fun that you do on your time. And
Mhm.
so if it's a pair of pants, I always have one hand in each of those pockets. There's the work stuff, and then there's the me stuff.
Mhm.
And finding time for the me stuff when you have to pay bills and do the them stuff can be tricky, but you figure it out. And look, when it's fun to do, then you
Mhm.
find, then that is what you do on the weekend. Oh, you're not going to relax? No, this is relaxing. Going to the coffee shop and writing some stuff down. I
Mhm.
got inspired. I saw a movie that was cool, but I thought I could do something similar but different.
Yeah.
That's creativity. That's fun.
Nice. I mean, the experience of, I like the metaphor analogy of two hands and one in each pocket, like the half of it for them and half of it for you. And because I think a lot of people really get stuck in the when it becomes a profession or when it becomes a job, how to maintain that creative spark for yourself. And so, really, you separating the two and not trying to get everything from one pocket to continue the metaphor.
Right. In fact, yeah, one of the movies I wrote was an indie movie. It's kind of on a shelf right now, which is kind of disappointing, but it was called The Garden of Eden.
Mm.
And I wrote that because I was getting hired to do a lot of rewrites by the studios, and I felt very penned in by
Mhm.
that. There was a lot of parameters to what I could or couldn't do. And so I was like, I have to write something for me. So I over the course of 2 weeks, I wrote a movie, and it, to me, it's one of my favorite things that I've ever written, and luckily I was able to sell it, and it did get made. It's kind of sitting on a shelf right now, which is a little heartbreaking, but that's the business,
Yeah.
and you get on back on the horse and you just write something else. But the point is, sometimes, yeah, you do a lot of work for them, and then it starts to bubble up inside, and you got to do something for you.
Yeah.
But when I was first, before I had been hired to do anything, I was working in a car wash factory. I was
Mm.
working in a factory in Hackensack, New Jersey, making parts that would go to help build a car wash. But
Mhm.
while I'm working on this machine, mindlessly, making holes in plastic plugs and stuff, I was thinking of ideas. And then I'd grab the shop notepad, and it would be all covered in soot and dirt and stuff. And I'm writing, scratching out ideas because ideas were bubbling up. And the
Mm.
mindlessness of that was leading to creativity. And so you probably ask, like, how do you become creative? It's doing mindless activities like
Yeah.
walking, shower. The bathroom is great.
Yes.
For just letting your mind go blank and letting the ideas flow in.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that story of the while you're doing something else, that subconscious part of your brain is just like churning out ideas and things. And good for you for listening to them, because I think many people don't, or choose not to, or think, oh, that's a stupid idea. So they've already like negotiated with themselves before actually giving it a try.
The pain I feel from having an idea, not writing it down, and
Mm.
then not remembering it later is so visceral and real to me that I never want to go through that. So I'm constantly carrying notepads with me everywhere. I can't
Mhm.
let that go. Just the other day, I woke up in the middle of the night and I didn't write down an idea, and I thought I would keep it and I didn't, and it's been bothering me for like, a week and a half. So
Yeah.
you have to, if you get an idea, write it down. Please write it down, type it into your phone notes, anywhere,
Yeah. Great
save it.
tip. Super tip to keep
Yeah.
going with that. I'm curious, the challenges that you've kind of a little talked about of writing something, having it sold and made, and then it's sitting on a shelf. Like, how do you navigate those challenges that are really out of your control?
You just have to program yourself to know that that is part of the business. Like you're in a
Mm.
business, right?
Yeah.
So there's a business decision that's happening beyond what you can control.
Hmm.
Look, I've been hired to do dozens of rewrites of movies. Most of them have not gotten made.
Yeah.
I've been hired to write movies that have not gotten made. Um, but look, I'm a professional writer. I could be the guy in the car wash factory. I could be still working in a bagel store. But
Hmm.
no, I'm a professional writer, and that is the business. And yeah, you have your highs and lows. And when they come and they say, we're making your movie or whatever, great, it's super high. But like I said, I got into this whole writing because you could do it alone. No one
Mm-hmm.
can stop you, or no one could stop me from writing. They
Yeah.
could stop me from getting a movie made. They could stop me from, getting to the next level, but they can't stop me from the task of doing it.
Hmm.
And then if you can do it and write words on a piece of paper, and then that paper is more valuable with the words on it than it was as a blank piece of paper in the store, great. You're actually working, and you're doing the thing you love. So,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, there's disappointments, but you got to just look past it.
But it sounds like you've over time it's become part of the process and part of the experience. So it's not as, I don't know, devastating as it might have been the first time it happened or
It can be devastating. It just can't stop you. You know,
mm-hmm.
like a boxer can lose, can get knocked out,
Yeah.
and like, are you going to fight again, or are you going to just quit? You know,
Right.
that's how you have to look at it. Field goal kicker, you can miss the field goal. Well, they might still need you later in the game, so
Right.
get over it. You can, cry about it for 5 seconds, and then you gotta go back and do it again.
Yeah. Well, seeing as you've been in the industry for quite some time, what are some of your favorite parts of the industry or memories that you have where you're like, this is going to stay with me for the rest of my life?
Um, well, I mean, look, getting the first call that like they're gonna buy my script, my very first script. I didn't know. I don't have contacts in this business. I went to film school. I went to
Hmm.
NYU film school. I made a movie. Uh, so there was a highlight when I got a call from somebody out in Los Angeles who saw my movie. Some people were showing it, and he said, I loved it. I'm going to send it to some managers. And then I got managers that called up and they said, we love your movie, but what else do you have? And here's a pro tip. If you want to do something, you got to do it. Okay.
Mm.
Even if no one's watching and no one seemingly cares, you got to do it, because they called me up and they said, what else do you have? And if I said, well, I have some ideas or I thought about this or that, the call would end and nothing would happen. But instead, I said, I've written 4 scripts just on my own, because that's what I do. I was
Mhm.
working in a bagel store at the time and I wrote 4 scripts, and they said, send us your best two. So I
Mm.
sent my best 2 scripts in, the two I thought were the best, and I got a manager. And then from there, they got me an agent. So these are all highlights, and to some people, getting an agent is the be all. It's not. It's a rung on the ladder.
Mhm.
Somebody once described it as the hierarchy of wishes. So it's like you get to one wish, well, then there's another one and another one.
Mhm.
So okay, so getting an agent. Well, now I still had to write something that could be sold. So I spent a year or two, and I wrote something. I used my bad journalism. about the time I wound up on spring break with my parents, and I thought that was ridiculous. So I wrote about this, and I turned it into a teen comedy. And when I get the call that that sold, oh, that was great. Then shortly after that, I got a call that my Just Friends script had sold. So I
Mhm.
had two script sales in like, less than a month.
Hmm.
And so that was fantastic. That'll always stay with me. And then walking into the National Geographic offices and having the whole staff was lined up applauding as I walked in with my business partner and friend Jerry Colbert. And we walked in and they're all applauding. And we're like, what's going on? It's not my birthday. And they're like, the Emmy nominations came out. Brain Games got nominated for an Emmy. Congrats, you're an Emmy nominee. So that was pretty awesome. And then, yeah, it's just project by project. Things happen, highs, lows. Learning that Leonardo DiCaprio loved my script and wanted to turn it into a movie. That was a great feeling. Getting Just Friends made was a great feeling. So yeah, a lot of highs, but then 10 times as many no's and failures and no, and it's not happening. So it's one of those. That's the business.
Yeah. So you keep saying like that's the business. I'm curious, is is this stuff that you like picked up from being in the business, or was there some teaching about like this is how this business works, so you're prepared stepping in, or was it more of a shock to you of like, oh gosh, what am I actually doing?
That's funny. Nobody taught me. I'm like, my brain is already going like, hey, is there a cottage industry of someone who can teach and help people understand that they're gonna, it's gonna be a lot worse than they think, and that they're gonna hear no more than yes. No, it's just something that happens as you progress. Look, you'll hear a lot of no's, and you just have to prepare yourself mentally for that. And nothing will.
Mm,
My very first script, the one that sold, we went out with it and it didn't sell.
mhm,
Everybody said no for some reason or another. And a lot of the reasons were even conflicting. Oh, it was to this, and then somebody else was to that, which was the thing that the other person said, they crossed and they didn't, compute. It's like, wait, too funny or too this, too serious. And it's like, wait, how can it be both? It can't. They just come up with excuses. They say no,
mm,
and you got to live with that. And I actually started. Okay, and here's another pro tip. Okay, so we went out with my first script. It didn't sell. So I
mhm,
felt a little, beaten up and a little miserable. And I said, when else have I felt this way? Oh, I know. When I was in the friend zone with that girl I was in love with for 2 years, that also felt pretty crappy. Why don't I channel that? And then I
mhm,
wrote Just Friends, which, capitalized on that feeling. And even early drafts of it were a lot more different than the movie, but
mhm,
just captured that feeling of wanting something and not being able to get it.
mhm,
And a lot of guys and gals could relate to that. And so when the first script, I finally get a call like, oh, somebody read your first script and actually wants it. And then right after that, the other script was done and sold. But it was only because I capitalized on that feeling of crappiness and was able to write the second thing. So people say, oh, how I'm not creative. It's like, really? Do you think? Do you feel? As long as you think and feel, you can be creative because just
yeah,
channel that into something. You can write an angry, make an angry painting because you're angry. Great,
right.
great. It's art. It's something. There was nothing
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, it made me think I'm the curiosity of like being in film school, and what was the training for rejection that you got?
that's a great, well, the first thing they said at film school, they took our entire film class, about 300 plus kids, and the guy stands up in front of everybody. And I'll never forget this. He goes, I want everybody to look around and to know that in 10 years, maybe 10 of you will actually be working in the film business.
Hmm.
And everybody did the same thing. They all point to themselves, well, I'm one. And now they're trying to find the other 9 people who are going to be joining them. But that's how your brain works. It's like, wait, no, he just said that 300 plus people, only 10 of you might make it in the film business.
Yeah.
Now, do I think he was wrong? It was probably more than 10, but
Hmm.
I'll tell you what, at least half the class probably not working in the film business anymore.
Hmm.
So, but that definitely put it in your head like, oh, so this isn't like going to, computer school and learning, how to code, and then you just get a job at some company. You're like,
Right.
this is golden ticket time.
Yeah. So the reality of it was that snap
Yeah.
moment.
Now,
Yeah, for
granted, there's
sure.
lots of jobs in the film business. Like you
Yeah.
don't like everybody went in. I'm a writer director, and most people are not.
Mhm.
I'm not even directing as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
I've gotten to direct some things, but have I written a movie that I've then directed? No, I haven't. So hierarchy of wishes, that's still at the top rung for me.
Hmm.
But I've gotten to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do. So I'm happy and blessed for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And, for people who are kind of coming up or looking to get into screenwriting or movie making in some capacity, how would you encourage them to kind of find their creative voice?
Voice is the perfect word because that is what makes you different than other people. Like
Mm-hmm.
like, going back to that story, my manager said, send me your best two scripts. I sent him my best two scripts. Neither one of them got made into a movie or did anything.
Hmm.
Um, One of them went around town as a sample because it was a great illustration of my voice, how I was different than other people. And
Hmm.
developing that can take, sometimes for some people it's very organic or it's very natural.
Hmm.
Other people have to develop a voice, but figuring out what makes you different is very important. And the second script I wound up selling it it didn't work as a movie, but I wound up selling it as a TV show.
Hmm.
Uh, some executives, they thought, there was enough there for a TV series. So I got hired to write a pilot. Never got made. Nothing ever happened with it, but at least I got something for it. But the
Hmm.
point is, they showcased my voice, the way I tell a story differently than other people tell a story, and that is something like if you want to be a writer, say, or some a creative that involves storytelling.
Hmm.
Well, are you a storyteller? If you go to the party, are you the one that tells the
Hmm.
story? Are you the one that everybody wants to hear what happened? Like five of you went out and something happened. Are you the one that everybody's like, no, no, you tell the story. You tell the story better.
Hmm.
Right? Like you want to be that person because then you're in storytelling mode. And that's
Hmm.
what I was always that guy.
Hmm.
I would sometimes get blamed because, oh, you embellished it. You made up some stuff. I go, did you see everybody laughing? So yeah, who cares? Is this journalism? Am I writing for the Times? No, I'm telling a story at a party. So I made it funnier. Oh, kill me.
Yeah.
But it's like you want to develop that. You want to
Hmm.
be able to tell stories, be
Hmm.
whether it's making people laugh or making people feel something. Like, yeah, develop your storytelling abilities
Hmm.
is something I would definitely recommend, and be versatile. You never know what kind of writing you're going to do.
Hmm.
Um, Today alone, like part of my day is writing a promo that's going to be on one of my podcasts. I
Hmm.
have to respond to adults on a Facebook page that love my show and they write comments and I have to comment back. I also have to respond to kids who love my kids' educational podcast and they want to, they think, that the narrator is talking to them. It's actually me. And, and I'm answering things that they will then go off and think is funny or whatever. So I have to do that. I have to write a script. I have to do a rewrite of a script. So it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
there's a bunch of things, but it's like all throughout the day, it's different types of writing and just allowing yourself to be versatile and do as much as you can,
Hmm.
whether it's TV, film, promos, podcasting, be open to it all.
I love it. Yeah, great tips and ways to tap into creative voice. It's so important. And yeah, for people who might, struggle with just that confidence, because you strike me as someone who has a lot of confidence and belief and trust in yourself that regardless of the yes or the no, you're still going to do this because you love to do it. So for people who may have be a little more intimidated by the no's, what's kind of a ground floor keep going tip?
Well, like I said, they can't stop you from doing it. And if
Mm-hmm.
you if you if you acknowledge the fact that, okay, if I'm getting no's, maybe it's because I'm not good enough. But here's the thing, you get better by doing it.
Yeah.
So that's should be, I mean, yes, you have to grow skin like a rhinoceros to keep, the arrows from piercing you and killing you. So you do have to grow a thick skin and expect no's, be surprised by the yeses. But here's the thing, you get better by doing it. And here's something that I do all the time. I'll write a draft and I'll put it aside and I won't send it out and I won't look at it. I'll let a couple of days go by. I'll pick it up, I'll read it, and I'll be like, wow, that sucks. I suck. I am not a good writer. Wait, I'm actually a good enough writer to know that what I wrote stinks. And if I can rewrite it, oh my goodness, and nobody will know. I fooled them all because I'll do a rewrite on it and I'll work on it and I'll say, oh, this sentence is terrible. Oh, I can fix that. And then by the time I give it to somebody, they're like, this is great. They don't know that I spent like an extra week or so polishing it and doing it and going back and changing it and making it funnier or better. Like, that's the thing. That's the process, rewriting, doing it, working on it, you get better. Yeah, sure. I'm confident because I've had enough successes, but at the same time, I'm also an insecure writer. If I don't hear back from somebody, I wrote something and sent it in and I don't hear back right away, I'm like, oh boy, they hate it. And I'm already thinking how I can make it better and what can I do? And then, they might like it, they might not. But the point is, you get better by doing it. So don't worry if it's bad in the beginning, just keep doing it. It will get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your honesty of your own process.
Sure.
This has been such a treat chatting with you. I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
What does it feel like in my body? Oh, wow. It actually, I mean, there's nothing better than getting a good idea. I mean, I've made myself tingle. I've made myself like, almost lightheaded sometimes. I mean, this Garden of Eden movie that I wrote it in 2 weeks and I did something that I never do, which is I just started writing it. I didn't outline it. And I just was doing it almost like an exercise to see where I could take it and where I could go. And then an idea like a bolt of lightning hit me for a twist ending. And when I wrote that, I literally was like, I felt like I had been struck by lightning, like literal lightning.
Yeah.
And I was like tingling, the hairs on my arms were standing up. So yeah, if you can get yourself to that frenzy and that feeling, like, I mean, a lot of times with the TV shows and stuff, there's so many different ways to approach something.
Yeah.
So if you can suddenly feel something happening inside you, tingles or butterfly or something, and you're like, oh, I think this is it. I think I've got it. I think I've got it. Like the name of our kids' podcast is Who Smarted, which stands out from every other kids' podcast. It's just, I say the name, the kid laughs, the parent goes, oh, that's good. And they're like, I'll remember that. Right. And it's like, when that name hit me, I felt tingles and stuff. And then I wrote down a bunch of names on a whiteboard. And I hid it from my business partner. And I said, okay, I got the name and it's hidden among a bunch of names. See if you can guess which one. And I pulled the sheet down and he looked and he goes, oh my God, Who Smarted? That's great. That's great. So yeah, a lot of times, coming up with a fun title that then informs the whole show. Like, I know I'm taking a long way to answer your question, but I guess tingles.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about the work you have out in the world, your podcasts, all the other things, how could they go about doing that?
Okay, so right now, mostly promoting podcasts. I've got 4 podcasts that are out there. 2 of them are for kids. Say ages 5 to 10 is our sweet spot. One of them is called Who Smarted. The other is called Mysteries About True Histories. And if you take the first letter of each of those words, it spells math. And so we actually hide math in all the episodes, math and some geography and some history. But those are for kids, Who Smarted and Mysteries About True Histories. And then my wife, myself, and my business partner, we do a true crime show called Slaycation. About murders and mysterious deaths that happen while you're on vacation. And then I have a new podcast that we just launched. It's about the Oscars, the Academy Awards, and it's called The Oscars. What were they thinking? And it's me and the legendary writer and Oscar, he wrote 25 years for the Oscars, Bruce Valanche. And we look at the Oscars of the past and we, debate, argue what they got right, what they got wrong, the snubs, the flubs. So, I love talking about movies. I just love talking, but I love talking about movies in particular. And yeah, it's great to go back and look at the Oscars of the past and sort of relitigate how they did things.
I mean, how fun. I love all of that. And I will put that in show notes so people can find your other podcasts. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Oh, it's great talking to you.
Yeah.
A pleasure. A pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.